Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to everyone. It is truly a momentous occasion for us to have Mustafa Akil present before us here today. The last time I met with him, we were both in Oslo for the Freedom Forum. And I think it's a rare privilege for me today as we inaugurate the launch of the Malay translation of his thought-provoking and timely book, Islam Without Extremes, A Muslim Case for Liberty. Can we have the translator stand up, please?
Yeah, where is he?
No, he's
not here. Okay, he's not here. It's unfortunate because for other authors, you can at least find alternatives for translation. Anyway, Mustafa's arrival in Malaysia actually comes hot in the heels after yet another bomb attack in Istanbul, which actually halted my travel plans. I was about to board the plane when I heard the news. I guess then you really felt very vulnerable, and it really was a clear and present realization of danger for me, as globalization brings us that much closer to one another through freer flow of humans, knowledge, and with it even closer in proximity to the war against extremes. Terrorism in all its manifestations is abhorrent to human conduct. No religion sanctions such activities, and under no circumstances is deliberate targeting of non-civilians, non-combatant civilians ever allowed. Yet the world has failed to eliminate this menace. Instead, we have only seen unprecedented increase in the frequency and severity of such incidents as the murderous juggernaut becomes ever more sophisticated. Islam, and I think we keep reiterating this time and again, is a religion of peace, categorically condemns any and all acts that threatens and destroy human life in peaceful times. It has an elaborate legislative matrix to protect the dignity and sanctity of human life, conveniently ignored and abused by those who act in its name. Clearly, as we see today, terrorism leaves us with little choice other than to make an active foray into the effort of pushing back against the prevailing, now it's called ISIS narrative. Now, in this regard, among the key themes of Mustafa's work, especially in this provoking and timely book, Islam Without Extremes, the key themes really resonate with Muslims in Malaysia. And I would say one of the key issues is the importance of decoupling our faith and religious tradition from cultural biases and legacy behaviors which are not necessarily part of religion. In addition, we have to rediscover and share the essential liberalism and tolerance of Islam in our modern context, especially for us to thrive as a nation of multiple faiths and cultures granted with Islam in Malaysia as the official religion of the Federation. Mustafa repeatedly explains, even when we do not agree on issues, we as societies must agree on how to allow for disagreement. He further adds that differences were something inherent in Islam, not opposed to it. I recall Sheikh Taha Jabir Al-Alwani's treatise on ethics of disagreement. It actually mandates us to hear and engage different points of view from our fellow concerned Muslims. Adabul Ikhtilaf fi al-Islam, views on the ethics of disagreement in Islam, an explanation on the etiquette which we rarely practice, envisioned by Islam for all those engaged in discourse and intellectual dialogue. As such, knowing fully the need to denounce terrorism should only bridge the divide between fellow Muslims. There's no time to lay the blame game for terrorism on each other, but a time to fix our ethics and set of priorities against the rise of extremes. We already have a monster to fight. There's no need to complicate the process by fighting each other. Turkey and Malaysia have been great hopes for the whole Ummah. the much expected haven for Muslim Democrats with better political, media, and economic institutions than the rest of the Muslim world. But both countries have the challenge of staying on a path of continuous improvement. The challenge of not slipping back on the long and difficult path to complete the many necessary institutional reforms that will ultimately be necessary before our nations are global leaders in the absolute sense. In Malaysia, we very much appreciate the problem that we're facing. It is not authoritarian Islam per se, but a legacy authoritarian culture which Mustafa speaks about and practices of people who happen to be Muslims. Whether it's the grossly distorted gerrymandering of electoral districts, numerous instances of electoral fraud, a complete chokehold of print and television controlled by the ruling party or its allies, and worse, the continuing use of race and religion in politics. Still, as Mustafa informs us, we know the need to decouple religion from behavior, good or bad, in a pluralistic country, while still calling on Muslims to lean on their religion in order to pursue ideas of tolerance and generosity, not exclusion and marginalization. I remember one of the key things that struck me in one of his speeches. He was performing the pilgrimage in Mecca, and he said, there was no separation of sexes. Men and women were worshipping all together. They even conducted the tawaf together in front of the Kaabah. And this stood in stark contrast, whether it's trolleys in Malaysia, but with the rest of Saudi Arabia, in Burger King, if I'm not mistaken. So we have to break away, ladies and gentlemen, from us versus them mentalities worldwide, away from Muslim versus non-Muslim, Islamists versus secularists, Turks versus Kurds, and Malays versus Chinese. Sometimes Indians as well. Such bigoted fears and prejudice are precisely the fuel that continues to burn the ISIS agenda. Mustafa Akil represents a refreshing challenge to the modern Muslim to be both introspective and civilly engaged, both spiritually engaged, connected, and politically active. Mustafa and I may not agree on everything politically, but we agree on an ethic of civil and truth-seeking disagreements, necessary for everyone, but especially pertinent in the engagement between fellow Muslims. He elucidates the battle against authoritarian legacies, be it Muslim or non-Muslim, i.e. secular, through a very touching segment on his own experiences as a child. Visiting his father in Mamak prison. I quote, "As the inmates lined up on the other side of the barbed wire fence, I came side to side with him, my father. He was much thinner than 4 months earlier, the last time I had seen him, and his head was shaved. Yet he had the same big smile on his face, and he greeted us happily. As I remember vaguely, he told me that he was very comfortable at the prison and that he would be home soon. There was systematic torture at Mamak prison, and my father was on trial for capital crimes. For what? For nothing but being a public intellectual. I, as a Muslim kid, faced tyranny not in the name of Islam, but in the name of a secular state. It is this illiberal mindset, rather than religion or secularity as such, that is the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, I end by congratulating IRF and Mustafa for courageously and actively taking on this issue. We can no longer be innocent bystanders, unfortunately. Or, in the unlucky sense, possible victims to the ongoing cycle of extremism-led violence or the ensuing Islamophobia that engulfs those who choose to fear. As Jakarta proved to their Jangan Takut or Jakarta Berani taglines, so must we assert ownership in democratic traditions against all forms of tyranny. Terrorism is upon us. We had better get that right and address its root causes rather than use it as justifications to silence legitimate thought and dissent. Selamat meluncurkan buku saudara Mustafa Akyol. Jangan lupa membeli versi bahasa Inggeris dan bahasa Malaysia. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Now we would like to invite Mr. Mustafa Akyol to present to present a present appreciation to Nuraliza.
So I give a speech, so I can get a present. It's a big present, right? You have to give it to me.
Oh, great.
Just take a present.
Yeah.
Well, my book is included, so I'm very happy that.
I know, it's sold out. It's sold out in the...
For reading my book too.
I know.
You quoted.
I know, I did. It was very touching. Yes.
And I'm wishing you the best for the fun.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you.